series of explosions devastated 3 sites in London. Authorities are asking residents to remain in their homes as the situation continues to develop. We have received no official casualty total, but it is expected.
Mourners gathered for a series of candlelight vigils that brought closure to thousands of families and indeed to an entire city. London is now laser-focused.
Today at 10 Downing Street, where Nigel Cass, CEO of private military company Albion, received a mandate to secure London. Cass has vowed to hunt down DedSec. Terrorist responses failed.
Watch Dogs Legion is set in a near-future version of London that suffered a massive coordinated bombing attack that instills fear among all Londoners. The attack is a flashpoint that plunges London into chaos, giving authoritarians and opportunists the chance to fill in the void left by an ineffective government. One of these authoritarian opportunists is Albion CEO Nigel Cass, that has taken over policing in the city, leading to brutality and abuse. He's being supported by the newly founded SIRS intelligence agency that has turned the most sophisticated surveillance system ever on the inhabitants of London, spying on them to pick out the people who could rise up against the new rulers of the city. And in the midst of all this subdued chaos, there is Mary Kelly, the ruthless head of the most powerful criminal syndicate in London that not only had something to do with the bombings, but specializes in human trafficking and organ harvesting. Now, as you might have guessed with this short description of the game given to be by Ubisoft, gone are the cheerful and pretty careless days of Watch Dogs 2, where everything you did was pretty much a publicity stunt to get likes. Watch Dogs Legion is a much darker and bleaker game in almost every sense, and it wastes absolutely no time in letting us know just that. The game opens with Dalton Wolf, an SIS agent working with DedSec, trying to stop the bombing of the Houses of Parliament, where he discovers that someone is trying to pin a terrorist attack on DedSec by planting an overload of fake evidence against the group. Dalton succeeds in stopping the bomb, only to find out that there is more than one bomb planted in the city. When he tries to disarm the remote detonator, he gets stopped and killed by the mysterious Zero Day.
Well done, Dalton Wolf. I'm impressed.
The fuck are you?
Oh, you still think you're here to save London? I'm afraid that's not going to happen. You're here to help us with some important work.
Important work? Killing thousands of...
Exactly. To save the world. You do know Londoners have died before, hmm? The plague, the Great Fire, the Blitz. It's not much fun. But destruction is always the cure. And it begins today. Zero Day. It's time for a hard reset.
Oh my god.
And then we skip a few months into the future, where Sabine, the head and only DedSec survivor, tracks down a potential recruit to start a revolution and save London from the newly formed oppression. Now, I won't spoil anything else about the main story beyond this point, but I will say that I really love the overarching story and a lot of the smaller subplots. Now, at the start of the game, you're given the option to play with or without permadeath enabled. If you start your playthrough with the feature on, but you don't really like it, then you can always turn it off, but once it's off, you can never turn it back on again. Except if you start a new save game, and this is where things get a bit complicated. Well, not complicated, but it's a shame, because you can only have one save file on your console. I myself have completed the story for this review with permadeath disabled. I only started a new save game because I at least wanted to capture some footage showcasing permadeath. And I have to admit that I felt like I missed out on a pretty important piece of the game with permadeath turned off. If you play without it, you lose a lot of its sense of urgency and pressure to succeed in one go. Not only because you can actually lose an operative, but also you'll be able to lose all his or her connections and connected potential recruits. Something I didn't expect and also hadn't captured because it only happened to me after I started rendering this review. So obviously I had to mention that small detail here and, well, I had to re-record this whole section. But hey, that's a small price to pay, right? Because it is a pretty nasty surprise seeing that you can not only lose your operative but also lose a potential recruit with just one death. So be careful when you try to recruit new people. Now, that's not to say that you should not be careful when you're just free roaming though, because if, let's say, you run over an NPC and he or she dies, well, everyone connected to them will be notified that they were killed by a DedSec operative and they'll instantly dislike the whole group. And if these NPCs were really close, like brother and sister for instance, they'll become permanently unavailable to recruit. It is a nice twist if you ask me, but it can be very punishing if you had your mind set on someone only for them to become unavailable because you hurt someone else. But then again, the opposite is also a possibility. Let's say you want to recruit an Albion guard. Well, they won't be happy to join you. But if you get rid of a rival of theirs, all of a sudden they'll start to like you a hell of a lot more. So it's a really cool system. Now, this whole recruitment system and being able to play as almost everyone you see on the streets of London is a really cool concept, and it is developed really well. With every character in the game even having their own schedule and they actually follow that schedule, it's really cool stuff, and it does put all other games NPCs to shame, since all they do is walk around the block and never really do anything. But being able to play as anyone does come with some limits. You can never have enough different types of side missions to keep recruitments feeling fresh, and this is sadly kind of the case. During my first playthrough, I didn't really notice that much of repetition. Actually, I didn't notice any at all. But when I played on my second save file, I noticed that recruitments kind of played out the same, even though I was recruiting different people, and to be honest, they were no exact carbon copy of the first playthrough, but the recruitments played out in the same zones as before, with the same objectives, with the same enemy types, only with another backstory. Now, for both my Albion guards that I recruited, both were female captains by the way, I had to help out a friend with some medical problems. In the first save, it were transplant organs that were stolen that I had to get back to a hospital by stealing an ambulance from Clan Kelly. And in the second save file, I needed to steal an ambulance from Clan Kelly from the same spot with the same type of enemies, but this time the ambulance was filled with medication that the clan have been keeping for themselves. Now, it could have been coincidence, but I don't think that's the case. I do think that there is a certain type of recruitment mission tied to a certain type of character. Now, the second limitation to being able to play as anyone, or everyone actually, is the fact that you can't logistically voice over 1 million Londoners. And Ubisoft solved that problem really nicely by using AI modulation to, well, modulate existing voices into new ones. And it does work really well, kinda. Every character I've met so far did sound very distinctively and unique, but you could always pick out the ones that were voiced by the AI tech, because they sounded pretty lifeless and monotonous. But it's pretty fascinating to see, well, here in this case, that this technology actually works quite well.
Another brave soul for our ranks. Welcome aboard.
Thanks. I'm ready to bring real justice where it's needed.
Fucking excellent.
You don't strike me as the kind of person who waits for someone to come save them. You're ready to fight for freedom.
Oh, you're a DedSec. Good. I need help with something.
That's what we're here for. What's going on?
You've heard of the Albion deportation squads.
And you get the idea. You're fucked.
We are being hunted down like dogs. Let's kill him already.
Yes, I wouldn't recommend that. All scenarios show DedSec's odds of survival approaching 0 before he can be found. Malik probably worked out the same thing.
That's a solution for that. Bagley boy, show every...
Except for poor Dalton Wolf in my save file without permadeath, because he survived his own scripted death I guess that's a bug. But anyway, as a result, he didn't have any original lines, and because of that, he sounds kind of, well, like this.
We working with a cop now? Am I the only one who sees what a monumentally dumb fuck idea that is?
I get it. Really, I do. But Lau's not your typical dumb cop. Give her a chance.
PFFT. All cops are typical. That's why they're cops.
Hey, at least she's not Albion. Give her a chance. She might surprise you.
Uh-huh. And if you're dumb enough to trust her, she might end up surprising you too.
Now, these recruitments are a pretty simple process, or at least they seem simple. You can scan your target, and if they don't have the thumb down, you can approach them. They'll ask you for a favor, like I said before, complete the favor and they join DedSec. Things get a bit more complicated if they have a thumb down, because that means they don't really trust you. And if you still want to recruit them, you use the D-profiler, which will show you their routines and will show you their connections. There you might see they have a rival or another connection that might need your help. Take out their rival or help their connection, and then you can approach them. If you help their contact, there is also a solid chance that they too will join DedSec. So you get two operatives in one single move. At least that happened to me once or twice. But of course, Watch Dogs Legion does not only revolve around assembling the biggest team, you have to use that team to liberate London. And that liberation is done in the old-fashioned Ubisoft way. The city is divided into 8 boroughs, or zones, and to liberate each zone or borough, you have to do some side missions, like photograph evidence against Albion, Clan Cali or Surs. Some missions also require you to sabotage or steal some data on the server, and then there are the liberation side missions where you have to take down some form of Albion propaganda. All of these missions culminate into one last liberation mission that starts with you infiltrating a secured Albion facility and ends with you taking down some more propaganda. It's the same stuff Ubisoft has been using for quite a few games now, except this time you don't have to climb towers and the missions have received a fresh coat of paint. But it is still a pretty stale formula by now, if you ask me. The main story missions luckily offer a lot more variation. Sure, there is still the loop of get intel about the enemy, locate the enemy, and infiltrate their lair to confront the enemy. But the way this loop is diversified made me actually not notice it at all while I was playing the game. It only dawned on me while I was, well, writing this review. Now, I won't be getting into detail about what kind of missions you can expect during the main storyline of the game because I don't want to spoil them for you. All I will say is that you'll encounter plenty of the classic Watch Dogs environmental hacking puzzles, but they seemed a lot more easy than the previous games. But there was one where I got stuck on for a while, but that was my fault because I kept glancing over one locked thing. Anyway. There are also these mandatory game moments like stay in the zone while something is being downloaded while every enemy starts shooting at you, and there are quite a few of those and I really don't like them, but sadly they've become a bit of a gaming staple. Now, speaking of shooting, the gunplay in Watch Dogs Legion is actually pretty good. Guns sound distinctive enough from each other, but I would have liked to hear a bit more punch when you shoot one of those big turrets or a shotgun, because they kind of sound hollow. But that's a small gripe, because the gun feel is excellent with different types of weapons dealing different amounts of damage and different amounts of recoil. It's really good stuff.
Everyone, come over here! Do your fucking job! Cover me, little spider!
They're attacking me!
And stealth, by the way, is even more of an option than in the past games, especially if you take your time and thoroughly scout your enemies before infiltrating their secure zones. If you like playing stealthily, you'll want to unlock the cloaking devices as soon as possible. There are two kinds. One that cloaks you or your spider bot, and one that cloaks subdued enemies until the mission is over. And it's the latter one that came in handy most of all for me, because being able to hide your enemies where they fall is a godsend, and I absolutely abuse the system. Because in most good stealth games, and this one as well, when an enemy finds their fallen comrade, they set off an alarm and everyone starts hunting you. But that's not the case when you cloak your enemies. But if you do get spotted, or if you don't have the cloaking devices, well, the enemy AI won't give up easy as long as they know where you are. And they will do their best to box you in and, well, make sure you stay where you are so they can keep fighting you. And they'll even send in enemies that can also cloak themselves. Now, luckily you can spot them because of the distortion they produce, but that distortion is only really obvious when you're actually looking straight at them. And because of that, they actually got a drop on me quite a few times, and they're not the kind of enemy you want to let you come close to you, because they pack a devastating shotgun that can take you down in just a few shots. Another annoying enemy, well, annoying in the good sense, is one that deploys spider bots of their own. Now, these aren't regular spider bots, no, they're self-detonating bombs as soon as they get close to you. So if you see or hear one of those bots coming towards you, put some distance between you and try to shoot it before it reaches you, because they'll kill you in an instant. And then there are the enemy drones, and where I love the drones in Watch Dogs 2 to easily clear out enemy filled zones by pitting factions against each other and then just watch the chaos unfold, well, now I really hate the things. I really do. Especially the chase drone, that is exceptionally good at, well, chasing you down while you're wanted. If you don't take them out fast, they'll make your life a living hell and make it really difficult to escape Albion, because they're really fast, and when they got you in their sights, they can shoot an electric bolt that deals a lot of damage, when you're on foot of course, but even when you're in a car, they can take down your car. Well, they can make you lose control of the car and let you crash, and that crash gives the human enemies the time to catch up with you. And well, then you're back off where you started, trying to escape from them and then being chased by those chase drones. Now, those chase drones are actually the least of your trouble because of their big brothers, the riot drone and the counter-terrorism drone. The riot drone is equipped with an automatic shotgun. It's a pretty dangerous one, especially if you're surrounded by other enemies, but the counter-terrorism drone, a slower but extremely heavily armored drone equipped with a machine gun and missiles, can only be taken out when its vents are open to cool down after, well, shooting at you for a prolonged time. Now, luckily you can hack these drones if you bought the upgrades that let you do that, and then you can turn those annoying drones into really powerful weapons of your own. Anyway, so the story of Watch Dogs Legion, it's pretty good. Well, it's actually really good. The voice acting and AI voicing, along with the other sounds in the game, are all top-notch, well, at least for the most parts. The gameplay loop is really engaging, but it is still an open-world game, so how has this fictional London been treated when you just want to roam around? Well, a big part of any open-world game, at least for me, is just aimlessly driving around the map until you find something else that grabs your attention. And I have to say that driving around London can be a true nightmare. Not because of other traffic, but because of the vehicle handling in this game. And if there is one advice that I can give you to make your life easier on the roads, it is to avoid bikes at all costs. They are a nightmare to control because they only seem to react half a second after you touch the steering. And well, as a matter of fact, most of the cars suffer from this problem, but in a lesser degree. Some of them drive just fine, but once you start to lose control, you'll kill a lot of NPCs without wanting to, because the cars don't respond well to small corrections, often overcorrecting only for you to try and correct in the other way, and well, it always results in a crash and with one or more dead NPCs. And all of that is not helped by the fact that NPCs on the sidewalk weirdly stumble on the road when you drive by. Their animations clearly show they want to dodge your car, but what they actually end up looking like is like an insurance scammer jumping on the hood of your car to get a massive payday, except instead of getting a massive payday, it is a funeral. It's a real shame to see that driving a vehicle is still something Ubisoft hasn't mastered yet, so please get it fixed because this is getting really annoying. Now, luckily, you can explore London in other ways as well. There is the fast travel system in the form of the Tube or the London Underground, and if you feel up to it, you can also walk around the city. But I'll tell you this right now, this rendition of London is really huge. It's even bigger than Watch Dogs 2 San Francisco, and half of that map was made out of water. It dawns on me that I didn't even talk about the graphics until now, but well, as you can see, the game is graphically really good with nice but sometimes stiff character animations, but those characters all look really good, especially when you consider the amount of them that had to be made in full detail, because they can all become playable. I cannot imagine the work the development team had to put into it to create all of them, but it really paid off. The world too, it looks really good, and yes, there is a big amount of pop-in and lot changes that are pretty obvious if you look for them. But when you're just playing the game, you probably won't notice it at all. And I just realized this review has turned out to be a lot longer than I actually anticipated, but I guess that's what you get for really enjoying a game. You get a lot to say about it, but I'll stop rambling here now because I went way off script, as you might have heard or noticed. But anyway, if you want an open world game where you get to play as literally almost any character you come across, set in a beautifully rendered technological dystopian London that happens to deliver a mostly good and engaging story, or if you're just a Watch Dogs fan, just pick this game up. You will not regret it at all. Except maybe for the driving, that really needs some fixing. But anyway, Watch Dogs Legion is overall a really great game, and I can wholeheartedly recommend it.